Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the RENNSPORT community events. This time here from the sunny beach at Daytona. And as you can already see, today we will have again an interesting mix of cars and an interesting mix of commentary. Because as usual, I'm not alone here today. I'm joined by Tim Ireland for another
Hello.
stream. I wasn't close
Hello,
to
Lena.
saying Tim Schroeder there, but
No.
yeah, today we will have a 45-minute race, so not quite as long as the RWL races, but still quite a long distance with the GT3 and hypercar cars. As you can already see, one of Porsche being backwards and a bit of a Porsche train here with 3 911 GT3s and 3 963s. We have quite the interesting names on the grid as well, so I'm sure we will see plenty of action on the track. And also a perfect split between hypercars and GT3s. Lots of stuff to talk about for sure. But on the other hand, I think it will be a very cool race to spectate. And of course, also, this is running parallel to ESL1, so if you're just coming from there, welcome to you. This is community. And after the stream, there's still the ESL1 finals to go for. What do you expect for today?
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to this because we've got a bit of a bigger grid than the ESLR1. Take that, with 14 cars, well, 13 cars at the minute lined up. Got a mix of hypercars and GT3s, as you said, which is always a classic mix at Daytona. Some good, nice passing opportunities for the hypercars on the banking without getting too stuck behind the GT3 traffic. But of course, you've got the infield section, which could make things interesting depending where you meet some of the slower class cars.
So I already see some traffic situations here in qualifying.
And we've got a good mix, I think, of our kind of regular drivers across both classes as well. So it should hopefully lead to some exciting racing.
Yeah, we also got some names back. Mark Onyemachi is somebody who we haven't seen in quite a time in the community events or in general in the RENNSPORT events. Of course, one of our moderators. We say that I think every stream, at least with Remco. But good to see Mark in the car again. He's also live streaming if you want to check that out on Twitch. Old Man Machi TV. We have Gok Polassa in a hypercar, so not in a BMW M4 GT3, but still in a BMW. And we have a couple of other drivers. We also previewed some of them yesterday. We'll get to talk about them later. Here's P3 from yesterday, Dominik Ladler. And I think he looks very strong on this track in the 911 GT3.
Yeah, he seems to have, I don't know whether he's been practicing or he's just taken to it really quick, but he just seems to have really good pace here so far compared to everyone else. Maybe there was a bit of traffic or they're still on outlaps, but he's looking good. And he had some really good pace earlier on in the week as well, so he's probably feeling pretty good about himself.
I mean, with the P3 in the back yesterday in the ESL1 Runners-Up Cup, that's surely got to be a good feeling. But we also got Timothy Fritsch here today, and he's very consistent. Might be a threat. We've got Gok Polassa already talked about. Just trying to find, as Loreto is losing the car a bit there. Alizar also has proven himself a few times. But we got Joachim Thunder in this race again as well in the Audi. The lone Audi today. But, I mean, he is a genuine threat on Daytona usually, I'd say.
Yeah, he is a bit of a lone. Well, there's an Audi and an AMG and a sea of Porsches today for the GT3 field, so we're in for a good time commentating, swapping between all those liveries. But yeah, he's definitely set some good laps. Dominik Ladler's just kind of fired one back, and he's only a 10th off, well, 300ths slower at the minute. So that's a good even pace between those two so far, which bodes well for the action on the track. And then a bit further down, Ali Zahir and Timothy Fritsch are very close together as well, so that should be good.
And that's only the GT3 field. Of course, we will have fights in both classes. So in HyperX is Adam Medusa just missing his breaking point into the horseshoe there. But, I mean, that's a very nice story with the Medusus, because we've got both of them here today for the first time in official competition. Of course, Alkai and Ada being brothers, and Alkai being the older one of the two. But we've seen both on track, if I remember correctly. So it will be very interesting to see what they can do. They're both in the BMW M Hybrid hypercar.
Yeah. Yeah, the hypercar field is split a bit more evenly between the 963 and the BMW Hybrid. I don't know about you, Lena, but I've always found the M Hybrid to be slightly the safer choice of the two, as far as driving's concerned.
I mean, it pretty much behaves like with the GT3s. The 963 seems to be more of the aggressive kind of car. So it's a bit more twitchy, especially on acceleration. But both can extract the same pace. It's just about how you like cars to drive. And even though the hypercars seem fairly similar on the outside, I mean, they're both rear-wheel drive, mid-engine, and all that kind of stuff. They are very distinct in their driving style and the driving technique. Almost, or pretty much like a GT3 is distinct from Porsche GT3 to a BMW GT3. So it's pretty much down to what you like. And we've seen that with different drivers, different driving styles work very well. Yesterday, in the ESL Runners-Up Cup, Remco Meyer actually really well pointed out Tim Schroeder changed from his mighty BMW to the Mercedes, which was very fast on that day, but he just couldn't get it to work like an Edmondson, for example. I mean, he was faster, maybe, in the later stages, but sticking to what you are used to can be a good choice. So confidence, of course, a big part in this race, especially over the distance. And
yeah, with it being a longer race, you definitely want to be familiar with the hardware you're driving, and that consistency kind of comes with that. Whereas trying to pick up a new car can sometimes be a bit of a shock to the system.
I mean, we see a lot of new drivers. I don't really know as one of them. He said before he knows the track, but is more used to it in an MX-5. Of course, the Porsche 963 is on quite the other level performance-wise.
They're basically the same.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, maybe next year, somebody will enter an MX-5 into Le Mans, but I would love it, but I highly doubt that this will be the case.
It could become a fan favorite like the Dacia Logan.
It will definitely be. Just name it Garage 56 and you're free to go, I guess. But I think it will be a very interesting race in the long run with the pit stop especially. When do you do the pit stop? Do you get your pit stop right? So the pit entry especially, you brake from nearly max speed. In the G3s, that's at the entry, I think 255 is around where you're looking at when braking. The hypercars, of course, much faster. Squin DW just losing gear going into the bus stop and makes it a 360 and actually keeps it out of the barrier. Most of the people in the pits as the session draws to a close. But I think it will be fairly interesting over the long run who can keep their tires to work.
Yeah, I think tires will be the big thing in the hypercars. With them not having ABS, there's a couple of really hard braking zones. It's easy to lock up, and on those big, fast banked corners, flat spots will really start to get at your hands. So I think the tire, looking after your tires and tire management is going to be an important one for the hypercar drivers.
Yeah, indeed. And as we are now waiting for the people to get ready for the race, so we transition from qualifying to the race session. we can already announce something that will be very interesting. Because next week we will have the longest race so far in RENNSPORT history in the closed beta program, the 2.4-hour Spa race. Something that you really wished for, that I can tell.
Yep. I've been plugging for this for a while now, so whether I'll get dragged into commentator duties or whether I get to race is another matter. We'll get to that further on, I suppose. But yes, I've been very looking forward to doing the 2.4 hours Spa.
But in the meantime, the people have gotten ready to race. We will of course talk about the schedule later on again with more detail. But we see the hypercars get ready and into grid formation for the starts. Further behind, it's the GT3's Dominik Ladler alongside Joachim Thunder for that group. But up front, it's Gog Polassa who can go first. And we go racing in Daytona for a 45-minute race. And the GT3s are now also racing. And it's Gog Polassa leading into turn 1. It's a bit closer behind Joao Loreto, trying to get past one of the BMWs. Porsche's a bit sacrificed, and further behind, that's Joachim Thunder who got compromised, and collisions in the GT3 field between Joachim Thunder and Ali Zaher exiting turn 1.
Yeah, I don't know what happened in the hypercars, but Lasser seemed to very much get the jump on everybody in the rolling start procedure there. Joachim Thunder's getting straight back on the track and carrying on. He seems to be doing okay. Hopefully he's not got too much damage. And Ali Zaher is back on track as well.
Oh, that's one of the Porsche one. That should be Timothy Fritsch. You know, Joachim Thunder making his way past Quindy W for P9. He now really needs to get a leg up on Dominik Ladler, but he only has one car in between the two of them now. Alizar also seems to have recovered from his off with Joachim Thunder, but that was Timur LGC who's going slow for some reason. Seems to be going now again.
Gopo Lasser seems to have got a comfortable lead up ahead of the hypercars here. He's just going to be chilling and trying to manage the gap from now on, I suppose. Look after his tyres, try not to push too hard, which is a fairly good hypercar kind of stint.
I mean, what will be very interesting for the hypercars is once we encounter the traffic situation.
Yes, definitely. Joao Loreto seems to have a few problems on the opening lap, but he seems to be getting back into the flow of things. He's currently way back in the middle of the GT3, so he's got a lot of early traffic to contend with as he comes through the infield section. And that's Gokpo Lasser running really wide at the International Horseshoe and then putting him back down to third place.
Mark Onyemachi in 2 corners went from third to first, so he really made a move there on the 2 BMWs. But Adam Muldusu is looking racy. Alkay Muldusu also in 5th, close behind the leading pack. And Adrien Lunor, who had a few issues in qualifying, is already in 4th and only 2.3 seconds behind the leading 3.
Yeah, just when I was thinking the hypercars was going to be turned into a bit of a hot stint session there. It all kind of mixed up within the space of a few corners. Gokpo Lasser has got really good pace at the minute, so I'm sure he'll be closing up the gap to Adam Muldusu. And he's only just behind Mark Onyemachi, so that's bound to turn into some good racing as it goes.
Leading GT3 at the moment is Dominik Ladler. He has about 4.5 seconds to Joachim Thunder. But he of course had that off in the first run there. In the background you can see that white and green and black Audi R8. Alizar also had a pretty good start, I'd say.
Yeah, he seems to have, after the contact with Thunder early on, then both him and Alizar have managed to pull themselves right back into fairly decent positions now, and it's just going to be settling down and trying to getting smooth, consistent laps from now on, and see if Jochen Thunder can start to close the gap a little bit on Dominic Ladler.
Meanwhile, Polas has made his way past Adam Medusa, but Medusa is trying to hold on. And he is in a good slipstreaming position. Of course, this allows Marco Onimachi in the front to just run away with it at the moment. Adam Medusa trying it into the bus stop. Now he's backing out of it.
It's a sensible move there. It would have been a very dodgy lunge to try and make it through. Better to sit and wait and get the slipstream around the next corner onto the start-finish straight and maybe make a move into turn one.
Goes to the outside. Moves down back to the inside, but has to lift, and this will compromise this one into turn one.
You can already see another car ahead of them, so the traffic is going to be happening sooner rather than later.
Joao Loretos also making his way through traffic. Didn't have a good start here to this race, but he's still going. So he's trying to find his way past the GT3s.
Yeah, he had a few trips off being the world's most expensive lawnmower for a while there.
Well, that price still goes to some F1 cars, I'd say, but...
But he seems to have regained his composure and he's putting down some fairly solid laps.
But the gap between Marc Onimachi and Gok Polassa is also not really getting any bigger in this case. So
yes.
Because Adam Medusa is not blindly attacking, they seem to be able to profit off each other for a bit at least. And get closer to that Porsche 963 in the front.
You'd have to be a fairly brave man to try bump drafting in one of these hypercars, I think. So, but there are still ways you can work together using the side draft and the general draft as well to try and increase a bit of speed between them. So maybe they'll do a bit of teamwork and make the dream work.
Adrien Lenom, meanwhile, is still holding up strong. I mean, I said it before, he struggled a bit in qualifying, but right now, he's driving a perfectly fine race.
Yeah, the gaps are... Oh, somebody in a BMW off there.
Oh, and that's Ada. Oh no, it's Gok Polassa. Ada moved up into second place. So Gok Polassa so far, very quick. I just can't keep it on track for long enough in this case. Lost about 14 seconds. It's not the end of the world. It's still in pit stop range, to say it like that.
Back in the GT3 field at the minute, Jochen Thunder is lapping just under a second slower than Dominic Ladler, so the gap is slowly opening up. But some of the people further back in the field, like Timothy Fritsch, has definitely got the pace ahead of his position. So hopefully he can catch up to Mathis Gisman. Ali Zahir, Jochen Thunder, Dominic Ladler are the only ones doing 47s right now.
Ada's also slowly creeping in on Marc Onimachi. Their gap is only 2.8 seconds now. That's roughly 4/10 a lap he just gained on him.
Nice, because after T1 on one of the big braking zones, he might be able to close that gap right down. And maybe start getting a bit of a draft effect when you're onto the straight sections.
Seems like there's an issue for Ada though, because this car is stuck on the start finish straight. So not sure what happened there. We will find out later on.
Yeah, he seems to have retired to the pits now.
And Ölkan Musudu also with an off, but so is the Porsche of Adrian Luneau.
These hypercars are very difficult to drive if you're not used to them. There's a reason that it's professionals only driving them in WEC. It's a lot of a harder car to drive than a GT3.
I mean, you have a lot more power to the rear wheels, a lot more aerodynamics, of course. That's something you need to get used to.
And no ABS on top of that as well. So they'll be chewing through their back tyres, I'm sure, by now.
And again, I don't know, having to take the access road, but doing so fairly well. I know at least 100 people who just skip the chicane instead. So heads up to him for that. Unfortunately, Adam Medusa has DNF'd from this race. Only 10 minutes in.
Joachim Thunder, Ali Zahir, and Dominic Ladler have fairly even gaps between them in the GT3s as far as pace is concerned. So it looks like that will stay fairly as it is, incidents aside. But of course, we've got the pit stops in there to throw a bit of a joker in, see if it'll mix things up a little bit.
I mean, that will be especially interesting in the hypercar class. As you said, there's no ABS. If you lock up the tires in a 45-minute race, you will notice that severely at some stage.
Oh, yes.
Maybe you want to go for tires just to be safer in the car. And Mark Onimachi, for example, can easily spend those 27 seconds and use the fresher tires to his advantage. But here comes the attack from Timothy Fritsch on his colleague, or at least in terms of manufacturer colleague, Matthias Dijkman, who so far is also driving a pretty good race. It's a fight for fourth around the outside, and it's a good move there by Timothy Fritsch. Moving up into fourth in class.
Joachim Thunder and Ali Zahir both just put in almost identical lap times at 46.8. So they're definitely starting to put the hammer down a little bit more now. Timothy Fritsch has also dropped into the 47s. But yeah, they're definitely still picking up the pace in the GT3 cars.
Still, we have the first lapping maneuvers now. But until we encounter more traffic, it will still take some time.
Yeah, the back of the GT3 field is definitely a bit further back than the main body of it, but they still seem to be having some good fights back there. Quinn DW and Timo LGC seem fairly close to each other, so
Ölkan Musudu the first in the pits, so he's going for an early pit stop or picked up an amount of damage that he just wasn't too comfortable driving with.
if you've taken a spin in one of the hypercars, you'll definitely be feeling it on the straights. RENNSPORT definitely has a more, I'd say, realistic simulation of tire flat spotting than some other sims out there, where it's just a gentle rumbling of the wheel. In RENNSPORT, you do start to get numb hands after a while.
Quinny W having to go for a very wide route there through the bus stop. Just clipped the grass on the outside and basically had to go straight, but here comes the attack from Timio LGC on the outside. Of course, with much more top speed after that exit. It seems like Quinny W is backing off of it. Trying to go for the switchback though, maybe. But just can't get the power down in time.
No, couldn't quite get it to work.
Oh, and Ölkan Musudu having an off moment there. I think that was Mark Onimachi put a lap on him as well in the meantime. Maybe there's also a bit of an imbalance in the tires. If you overheat the fronts or the rears, of course you will have either oversteer or understeer to a massive degree. Usually it's more oversteery.
Yes.
So keeping the tires in the window is very crucial.
You would rather have the slightly safer understeer than the a bit more dangerous oversteer if you could have a preference. Mark, they're steaming past on the outside in a hypercar. The pace difference between the hypercars and the GT3s is huge when it gets in a straight line.
But what's very nice about this set of regulations, I think... Oh, and there's contact with... I think that was the Porsche of Timothy Fritsch.
I don't think there was contact. I think he just braked a bit too hard and lost the back end with his ABS. Well,
It looked like the car got a sudden hit. It's something again. And unfortunately it was a game crash for Adam Muldusu. It's very sad to hear, but hopefully he will be back next time in Spa. Because the pace is definitely promising.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I mean, you won at Spa, so you gotta defend your crown, I guess. Is Joachim Thunder slowly getting closer to Dominic Ladler? Because the gap was a bit bigger before, I think, and it's now pretty stable at 5 seconds.
Yeah, he's been lapping just a little bit faster, but yeah, he's somewhere along the line. He seems to have taken a pretty decent chunk out of it and is now being consistently lapping in the kind of high 46s, whereas Ladler's more been lapping in the very low 47s, so he's slowly creeping up to him.
Samuel Dussel going around the outside of Fridge in the banking.
Ali Zahir had a bit of a nightmare lap last lap. He's been 2 or 3 seconds slower than Joachim Thunder, so he's dropped back a little bit now.
He's still got quite the gap to Timothy Fridge, 8 seconds. Of course, we still got half an hour to go in this race with the pit stop incoming. So that will be a very interesting battle that could form between the two of them. Because Timothy Fridge, I think, might be a bit faster in the overall terms.
He isn't at the minute as far as his best lap's concerned, but there's not a lot in it. It's very, very close. But yeah, the pit stops. I've been impressed with how good the people have been doing pit stops in RWL, and people are obviously getting more used to them as we have them longer in the game. But how good people are at not losing time in pit stops has been really impressive.
Mark Onimachi going around the high side, of course. Joachim Thunder trying to get that little bit of extra boost in the slipstream. It's of course also something that can really play into your hands or against you. It's more, I think, in the hypercar class than the GT3 class, but having the cars in the right position at the right moment to gain just that 1 or 2 kph more on the oval can gain you over race distance like this quite a lot.
Yes. Yeah, catching up with the GT3s at a time where you can just grab a little bit of slipstream. It all adds up in the end for the hypercar drivers. So they'll definitely be hoping to see them on the oval section and definitely not in the infield part.
Bit of a fight between Dominic Ladler and Mark Onimachi here. Don't see that often between the GT3 and the hypercars, but Mark Onimachi is of course a driver who's very cautious in that regard. And he knows that he doesn't have to risk anything in his situation here.
No, he's got plenty of time to sit back, make sure he gets a good move. You can see him there taking a very late apex and then getting a drive out of the corner to get past.
Dominic Ladler currently leading GT3, but also in 4th position overall, which is, of course, due to the unfortunate instances with other drivers.
Timothy Frisch just going for a big spin there on the infield section. It's dropped him back down past Mathis Gisman.
I think that gives a lot of breathing room for Alizar, because Matthias Dijkman is also good on his pace at the moment, but I don't think in the longer run is as much of a threat as Timothy Frisch would be. On the other hand, Daytona does give you the chance to cool down your tires after such a moment.
Yeah, that is true. You get a lot more of a, especially where he span out there. He's only got one corner to go before he's back on the oval section, and then yeah, they'll definitely cool down by the end of that. Jochen Thunder now within 5 seconds of Dominic Ladler. Ladler had a bit of a slower last lap. Must have been a bit of a traffic situation. But he's slowly clawing the gap smaller and smaller as the race goes on, which will put added pressure on Dominic Ladler coming into the pit stops to make sure he gets a good one.
But yeah, it's what we said in the earlier stages of the stream or during qualifying. Joachim Thunder definitely fast here on Daytona. As you said, the gap is coming down. It's only 3.7 seconds now. I think if he continues with that pace, and I'm sure both will have no gains or loss in the pit stop due to their experience right now in this game, that this will come down to fight on track for position.
Always our preferred option. Unless one of them does an interesting tire strategy.
I would see that on maybe another track, but not on a Daytona. Who knows? Maybe at Road Atlanta, because next week will not only be Spa, but also RCL round number 2, or episode 2, in Road Atlanta. This you can see here. We've completed Spa-Francorchamps last week, which was a very interesting race. And now it's time to go to America, to Road Atlanta, and after that we will go to Daytona, so this very track. But in this case, only GT3 cars. And RCL functions quite similar in terms of the format, with a 45-minute race. Do you think we will see some tire magic there?
I don't know, really, to be honest. It could be an interesting one. We had the RWL race at Road Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, and it definitely has the ability to chew up your tires. There's a lot of very fast corners very close together, which doesn't give them a lot of time to slow down. And of course, we saw quite a few people taking off-track excursions, which required some attention in the pit lane. So I think it'll very much be rewarding to the people who can just do consistent laps and stay on the track, and maybe save their tires and go the full length.
Yeah, indeed. That's what I would also say in that case. Not much to add. It's always like so disappointing. I mean, at least you don't just repeat what I say and claim it as yours. Unlike a certain other guy I work with. But in the meantime, Timothy Fitch has gone past Alizar here. Has Alizar maybe been to the pits?
Didn't see him go in the pits, although we have got 2 cars in the pits right now. Dominic Ladler seems to be in there.
Indeed, Dominic Ladler is in the pits, currently in the fast lane. So he's coming out of it again. Only a splash and dash for him. In front of him, that's another Porsche.
It's Quinn DW, I think, is just in front of him.
He was fighting with Team LGC, but he's quite far back through the bus stop, so I guess he has changed tires in his pit stop.
Oh, it's a hypercar just randomly parked there on the International Horseshoe.
Seems like that was Joao Loreto. He can't really get to grips so far in this race with the cars. He had some good GT3 races, definitely, but so far the hypercar just doesn't seem to work for him as well.
It is a very different driving experience. Just the way you brake is so different, and the amount of speed you can take through corners is kind of unbelievable at the beginning. You go into a corner thinking, no, there's no way this car will go around. I've got to brake more. And of course, the more you brake, the less downforce you have. So,
You know, Mark Onimachi always lead us in the pits. See where he will come out, and he does actually change tires. Adrian Luna also coming into the pits. So he will take the lead for a brief moment, but it won't take him a lot of time for Mark Onimachi to reclaim that. Don't think Gokpolasa will stay out for another one.
oh, he missed his pit box.
So Mark Onimachi firing his car back up, now going again.
He very much missed his pit box.
Well, there you've seen him going through the picture. I mean, I've seen many people have that mistake in various different platforms. In the sim I originate from, which is Race Room, we had a good name for it because it was called the Christian Grötte. As Joachim Thunder's coming out of the pits, right in between Dominic Ladler and that was Quindy W. But he gained a lot of time in that. Only 2 seconds back.
Yeah, he managed to take another couple of seconds out of Dominic Ladler there, so he was definitely one of the big winners of the pit stops there.
And Mark Onimachi has come out right behind Gokpolasa actually, so Gokpolasa is staying out for another lap. And the slipstream of the 911 GT3 from Quindy W. I think Mark Onimachi might get a good run of him here.
We got a DSQ in the hypercars. The other Moldozo has been DQ'd. I wonder if that was speeding in the pit lane, maybe?
Could be if you really overdo it. Hard to tell. But here goes Mark Onimachi on Gokpolasa, who's driving yet another lap. And it seems like Gokpolasa has a lot of fuel left, I swear.
Yeah, he seems to have definitely saved on his fuel. I wonder if he's maybe got a better grasp of the electronic systems in the LMDH cars.
Meanwhile, that was what we just seen is just what I talked about earlier, because Joachim Thunder could just grab a bit of slipstream of Mark Onimachi's car on the straightaways, and Dominic Ladler had to basically let them through on the inside, but compromised his racing line through that turn 1. And that cost him, I'd say, half a second at least. Because Joachim Thunder is now within 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, it's not going to be long before he's going to start getting slipstream if these things carry on this way.
Will also be Joao Loreto coming through on them soon. He's currently passing Quindy W.
Mark Onimachi seems content to sit behind Gokpolasa at the minute, maybe waiting to see when he pits. he's got a ton of time behind him to back to João Loreto, so he's definitely in no rush to overtake.
We do have 15 minutes left to go in this race. Do you think that the fuel I see on Gokpolassa's car will be enough for him to carry all the way through to the end, as he just misbrakes, goes too wide into turn 1, comes back at Mark Onimachi, but I think he has him. And Mark Onimachi is back in the lead of this race. And hello and welcome to Adrian in chat.
Yeah, I wonder if we maybe missed him pitting earlier or something, because he's not got as much fuel on board as Mark Onimachi has, but he has only got, like you said, 15 minutes left, and I think he might be able to just about squeeze through and make it to the end of the race.
I mean, he must have pitted, right?
Yeah.
That's quite the outrageous amount of fuel save. Meanwhile, Joachim Thunder has lost easily 6 seconds and track position to Quindy W. Wonder what happened there. He's trying to get back at the Porsche to relap himself, or lap the Porsche.
A slow lap last lap. He did a 153, whereas before he was doing 47s.
And João Loreto stuck on the entry to the over a bit. Gets it rolling though. Oh, and Joachim Thunder around on the bus stop. I think that was contact, if I've seen that correctly on your screen. Contact with Quindy W.
Yeah, I think Joachim had been giving him some light flashing earlier on and decided to make the move into the bus stop. Quindy W not yielding to the blue flags there. The questionable move, shall we say. Putting Joachim Thunder another 10 seconds back from Dominic Ladler than he was before. He will not be happy about. Ali Zahir has definitely got Timothy Fritsch in his sights now with the long straights around the oval section. So he's going to be pushing, and he's definitely had some good pace early on in the race. So if he can reproduce a few of those laps, he could be well up on Timothy Fritsch soon.
That was a weird contact we just seen between Gokpolassa and I think it was Team LDC, the 7 car I've seen. Out of the bus stop.
Gotta admit, I was looking at my other screen.
I mean, some things you don't really need to understand, I guess, but you've got a bit more than 10 minutes left to go on this race. I don't think we'll see many more pit stops.
I wouldn't have thought so. Everyone should have pitted. Well, we'll probably have pitted by now.
And Timothy Fritsch is off. Lost the rear end in the horseshoe.
So that promotes Ali Zahir up to 3rd place. The car gods seem intent on ruining any chance we have of commentating on a battle today. Because every time 2 cars get close, one of them just decides to go grass cutting.
João Loreto's in the pits at the moment.
Yeah. He's doing a lot of repairs.
And it, as we said and as we mentioned, he fought the car a lot.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, he's definitely not been looking comfortable out there.
And the hypercar is a car that you really need to be comfortable in. It's not a car that you really want to push through each corner. It's a car that you want to let flow through the corner, if you want to say so.
Yeah, it's very much kind of like a rhythm car, isn't it? You get into a rhythm with it, and you just try to do that over and over and over again.
What I yeah.
It's not a car you can easily overdrive.
Yeah, indeed. And what I really like about the hypercar, actually, in conjunction with the GT3s, is that it's not so over the top as an LMP1 car, which of course was the predecessor to the hypercar regulations. I do love LMP1s. I said Scott Polassa in the pits as well, but he can easily afford another pit stop.
Seems to have been serving a 5-second penalty as well.
Better now than the results, I guess. So.
He must have had some a few track cuts in the last 30 minutes of the racing.
Yeah, but what I really like about the hypercars compared to the predecessor is that the braking distances are actually quite a lot longer if you compare them. Of course, a longer braking zone gives you more opportunity to fight each other.
Yes.
And it's also not so over the top when lapping GT3, so it's a bit easier for both hypercars and GT3s, as you don't have to trust them as much and do a massive dive to not lose too much time. You can just brake as the GT3s would. So the braking points don't really change all too much in the grander scheme of things.
No, it's only kind of a few meters shorter here and there, isn't it, with the hypercars? It's not overly different.
I mean, in some cases they're even a bit longer, maybe.
Yeah.
But those cars are really made to race each other on track. And that's just... I mean, I know there are many complaints about BOP and stuff, but I mean, the Le Mans 24 hour that we got last week is, I think, the proof for why this is a good idea and why this works so well.
It does seem to be a very good combo, and you can get the kind of gentleman drivers in the GT3 cars. Obviously, you can't really put them in the hypercars, but they still get to take part, which is a valuable source of income for the teams.
I mean, in that case, it's rather LMP2, because in the GT3 field was really stacked.
It was, yeah.
Of course, each manufacturer with the limited cars they can enter want to make the best out of their effort, so they put in the best drivers they have into those cars. And the only field that's really left for privateers to get into is LMP2.
But there were, I think it was the third sector in Le Mans, they were saying that the LMP2s were about a second quicker than the hypercars.
Yeah, especially through the high-speed turns and stuff, they are really quick.
So that made for some interesting overtakes, as one from one class wanted to be in front, while the other class wanted to be in front for the rest of the lap, essentially.
But as we got 7 minutes to go, and not much looking to change on track right now, maybe we can take another look at the schedule. As we already said, it will be a 2.4 hour race at Spa-Francorchamps in the GT3 cars on Sunday, half an hour after the Spa 24 hour stops or finishes. We will start racing virtually in the Ardennes. And if you can't get enough of Spa-Francorchamps, we have many opportunities to drive it, either in a Porsche Cup car, in a GT3 car, or in a hypercar throughout the week. So
it's a good spread of cars.
You can definitely get your grips at everything. And if your favorite car isn't featured on Spa-Francorchamps, there's of course still the time trials. Curious to see what Jay is putting up for the weekly time trial challenges.
That is Daytona at the minute, isn't it?
It is a hypercar Daytona at the moment, but of course we will have a new one, and I'm sure it will be something related to the schedule.
He does seem very good at doing that.
He is.
I'm liking the feature race with the Porsche Cup. That's a double header Spa-Francorchamps Nürburgring combo. That could lead to some interesting races.
I mean, it's a similar format to what we've run in KCG, for example.
Yeah.
So you kind of set yourself up in the second race with the result of the first. The first 4 days in the week it will be at Spa, the second or the other 3 days, so Friday to Sunday at Nürburgring. So you can get a bit of variation in that. And I mean, GT3s and TCRs at Hockenheim is also something that always goes. We've seen so much good racing in both classes at Hockenheim.
It's a surprisingly versatile track, isn't it?
It is.
It's like some tracks are definitely, when you're driving them, you kind of think this is a TCR track or this is a hypercar track. But I think Hockenheim's got kind of a bit of everything.
I mean,
Gives
they
everyone a chance
also
to shine.
held every kind of race imaginable, I think.
Yeah.
So we see Marc Onimachi getting past 2 Porsche 911 GT3s. That might be P7 at 8. So Quinn DW and Timio LGC.
There's a lot of headlight flashing from that Porsche there, the GT3 Porsche. I'm not sure he understands how headlights work.
I mean,
Mark can't see them from behind.
I could mention another name when it comes to flashing headlights, but this time maybe I will not.
I don't know if you saw the ESL Runners-Up Cup on the R1 stream, but they might have mentioned somebody flashing their headlights quite often as well.
I wonder who it could have been. I mean, he kind of got a reputation for it now, so maybe he should stick with that image, but... Yeah, we are entering the final 5 minutes of this race. Marc Onimachi in the lead. Gok Polasan second. It's also nice to see both cars in the top 2.
Yeah.
And 3 different GT3s on the top 3 steps. It's also quite nice.
Yeah, Joachim Thunder has caught up a fair bit, but I think it's more Dominic Ladler's just been taking it easy with the gap he's got. His lap times have been coming down. I think he's more just not pushing because he doesn't want to make a mistake.
Yeah, it's not worth losing the car now, I guess. Especially with traffic on your way. I mean, for Joachim Thunder, it will still be very good P2. He's shown that he could win this race, but of course, if you are that close to winning this race, and I think, I'm not sure when was the last time that he won an RCE, or if he even has won an RCE, I'm not too sure right now.
I'm not sure either, to be honest.
Of course, for him it's a disappointment. So,
yeah,
being that good on this track with this car, and you just can't make it work. He also couldn't participate in the first ESL R1 Runners-Up Cup to show what he's got because of some private issues he had, which prevented him from playing. But we will come back at Daytona, of course, in 3 weeks. We will be back with the RCL. Maybe then he finally has the chance to redeem himself.
And yeah, he does seem to have a fairly good pace here, so he's definitely got that going for him when RCL starts. And yeah, he had a fairly decent showing in the Runner-Up Cup yesterday.
Aliza as well in third. I mentioned him at the start of the stream that he might be a bit of a dark horse, might be a bit a good challenger for the podium, and here he is, currently in third in class. He really made something out of himself from the earlier races here, and where he really struggled with the Porsche in Monza, I think it was. And now he's running third, a 45-minute race, of course significantly longer.
Yeah, because we've been doing... God, that was a lot of stumbling. Because a lot of the earlier racing was shorter, and we've started increasing race lengths a bit more. I think some of the people who are more adapted to the short races have been taking a while to get back up to pace over the full race distances in the longer races.
Meanwhile, we should have entered the last lap. Now it's only 1 minute left on the clock. And here we have the two leaders in one picture. Dominik Ladler and Marc Onyemachi on the other side of the horseshoe.
And they're both Porsches as well. Are they going to do the Le Mans thing and finish across the line together? No, Mark
doesn't
disappears
seem
into
like
the
it.
distance.
Quickly message Mark. I mean, maybe he will wait, just like in the Ford vs Ferrari movie.
Maybe. We'll see.
But they can be really happy about what they have done in this race.
Yeah, Mark's driven a really good race, and Dominic Ladler. They got a fairly early lead, and they didn't do anything spectacular, but they didn't have to. They just took care of their tires and drove the distance.
Of course, a bit unfortunate for the likes of Adam Mildew. So he could have really challenged for the lead. He was arguably the fastest car on track. So very unfortunate for the game crash. It's Joachim Thunder
just doing some early donuts there.
Still a few corners left to go, mate. But here comes Marc Onyemachi out of the final banking for the final time. And across the line, it's Marc Onyemachi to his first RCE win in the Porsche 963. Congratulations to him. It will be Dominik Ladler winning in GT3, followed by Joachim Thunder. Timothy Fritsch finished in 4th. Alizar is gonna finish in 3rd. Of course, 2nd in Hypercar will go to Gok Polassa, who should come in after Joachim Thunder. He's finishing in this moment.
He's nursing around at a minute because he's only got half a litre of fuel left.
Oh, this might be interesting then. And he also seems to have run out of battery quite a bit.
So, where is he?
Will Gok Polassa be able to finish this race?
He's got a long way to go on 0.2 litres of fuel.
There goes one of the GT3s. Through the bus stop he goes.
He's just sitting in 7th gear there.
Accelerating. This thing goes really quick. And again, shifts up into 7th gear just to somehow make it to the finish. There's still one car coming up behind him. I think. On track. Meanwhile, Joao Loreto.
Very slow now.
Joao Loreto has finished his race.
I think he might be coasting back on electric right now.
But he doesn't have any battery left.
I don't know if the battery on my screen ever actually says anything but 0.
But he shouldn't make it nonetheless, and he's across the line to come home in 2nd on 0 liters of fuel. And I mean, he even had the extra pit stop. So dramatic.
Fritsch also very close on fuel at the end there.
Dramatic close to this race. But great race nonetheless. We've seen lots of action.
Definitely, yeah.
Your final standings will, of course, be published on the Discord, but just a quick rundown. Marc Onyemachi winning in Hypercar, followed by Gok Polassa in B2, and Dominik Ladler in front of Joachim Thunder and Alizar in GT3. And the rest of the grid who finished is Timothy Fritsch, Quindy W, Timur LGC in 4th, 5th, and 6th in GT3 respectively. And Joao Loreto finishing on the podium as well in Hypercar. I'd say that was it for today. Of course, there will be a small trailer coming up for the Spa race after we finished. But do you want to add something, say something about the race to finish it all off?
No, I think you summed it up fairly well. It maybe had a bit less action towards the end as we would have liked, but it was definitely an exciting race early on and around the pit stops and at the end there with the fuel shenanigans. But yeah, it was a good fun race to watch.
And I'm very much looking forward to next week, where we basically have double the action on the weekend with RCL on Friday and a 2.4-hour race on Sunday.
Nice.
And until then, I hope you have a great week. And we will see you then. Can enjoy some ESL R1 to close off this evening if you wish to. And yeah, have a great evening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.